Chapter 3. Reality Beyond the Five Senses, Beyond Logic, Beyond Reason. The religion of materialism is the dogma that rules modern popular culture and the realm of mainstream science. The materialist believes only that which we can see, touch, smell, taste, feel, and measure quantifies reality. The materialist also believes that any discussion of what lies beyond the five senses is foolish and not worthy of consideration. This worldview is shaped by the unproven assumptions of mainstream science, which is important not to confuse with the scientific method. The scientific method describes a process of experimentation in which theories are tested and either proven or disproven. This is a great concept that helps us to better understand the five-sense world of matter, but the political establishment that we know today as mainstream science is no longer rooted in the scientific method. Instead, it has arguably become a new religion. However, there is a blind spot in this point of view. Much to the dismay of materialists, science has many times helped humans unveil the world of superstition by confirming truths that were once opposed by the scientific establishment. Many of the experiments carried out today in government labs began with their conclusions pre-planned, and many topics are entirely off limits for scientists to explore. For example, it is taboo for an archaeologist or anthropologist to present an alternative view of history with their scientific findings. Scientists have dismissed researchers like John Anthony West and Graham Hancock, who presented evidence that the mainstream view of Egyptian history was entirely misdated and incorrect. These researchers had significant evidence that many structures in Egypt date back much farther than scientists initially projected. Mainstream science dates the construction of the Sphinx to around 10,000 years ago, while West and Hancock proved that certain significant weathering on the structures must have occurred at least 30,000 years ago. Despite this groundbreaking discovery, mainstream science rejected their evidence because it didn't fit in with the official narrative. Another rebel who has been challenging the unproven assumptions of materialism is scientist Rupert Sheldrake. Sheldrake courageously conducts his own independent experiments based on the scientific method which set out to explore areas that are too weird or taboo for mainstream science to take seriously. One of Sheldrake's experiments provided compelling evidence that pet owners have a telepathic connection with their animals. In his experiments, dogs were observed waiting for their owners to come home. Every dog would become excited moments before they received any physical indication that their owner was nearby. Sheldrake would have the owners take different ways home at different times of day, drive different cars, take the bus, walk and wear different shoes, or an unfamiliar aftershave or perfume, etc. This ruled out the possibility that the dogs were simply using their heightened sense of smell or hearing. Regardless of how the experiment was framed, the animals were always able to sense when the owners were coming home. While this does not definitively prove a telepathic connection, it does show a strong connection between humans and animals, which suggests that this is a point of view at least worth considering. Sheldrake also assembled some compelling evidence for the case of crop circles. In a brilliant experiment, Sheldrake hoped to gauge how talented human crop circle artists actually were. If it were possible to see the best job a human could do with a crop circle, then it would be much easier to deduce whether other random crop circles had been created by a human hand or some other technology. To get to the bottom of this question, Sheldrake hosted a contest with a massive cash prize for the best crop circle, and participants entered from around the world. Though they had created incredibly elaborate crop circles, they still were not as elaborate as others that have been recorded in countrysides around the world. Another field we feel the scientific establishment needs to catch up with is the idea of reincarnation, or remembrance of past life experiences. Traditional thought says that when a human body expires, so does conscious experience. However, there is abundant evidence indicating that children are sometimes born with memories of formerly lived lives. Take, for example, the story of James Leininger. James is the focus of the book Soul Survivor, the reincarnation of a World War II fighter pilot. The book discusses how Leininger began having nightmares, recalling violent scenes of planes being shot down and his own ensuing death. He was only 2 years old when these nightmares began. Leininger's parents say he would draw very detailed pictures of battle scenes complete with fighter jets from America and an enemy that seemed to be Japanese. James's parents began searching for clues as to what their son was speaking about and whether or not he was experiencing some type of mental delusion. The 2-year-old child exhibited an uncommon knowledge of the mechanics of World War II planes and would even detail memories of what he said was a past life as James, World War II fighter pilot. After researching some of James's claims, his parents were able to confirm the names of several people he said he had fought alongside. Eventually, the family learned that James Leininger somehow had detailed memories of James Houston, a fighter pilot who crashed into the ocean near Iwo Jima after being fired upon by the Japanese. When asked for specifics about his memories, the young child was able to identify his ship as the Natoma. James Leininger also correctly identified the name of Jack Larson, a friend of Houston's and the pilot who was flying next to Houston when he was shot down. Upon meeting veterans of the USS Natoma Bay, James Leininger was able to recite specific names and places from the war. The Leininger family went even further and made contact with the family of James Houston. James met the sister of James Houston and told a story of a painting done by Houston's mother. This painting had not been seen by anyone other than Houston's deceased mother and the siblings. Houston's remaining family was amazed at the detail the young boy was able to recall nearly 60 years after James Houston had died. Jim Tucker, a professor of psychiatry and neurobehavioral sciences at the University of Virginia, has studied over 2,500 cases of children who report memories of past lives. In a January 2014 interview with National Public Radio, Tucker described the difficulty in fitting these phenomena into a strictly materialist worldview. He says, "I think it's very difficult to just map these cases onto a materialist understanding of reality. I mean, if the physical world is all there is, then I don't know how you can accept these cases and believe in them. But I think there are good reasons to think that consciousness can be considered a separate entity from physical reality." Tucker references Max Planck, the father of quantum theory. Planck believed consciousness was fundamental and that matter was derived from it. This could indicate that consciousness and superconsciousness, or experiences of higher consciousness, are not necessarily dependent on a physical body or brain. So what exactly is consciousness? Before we delve deeper into expanding on consciousness, we should take a moment to define the word as we have defined other key terms. Consciousness is defined as the condition of being conscious, the normal state of being awake and able to understand what is happening around you, a person's mind and thought, knowledge that is shared by a group of people. As we have noted, the mainstream view of science operates from a place of ignorance when it comes to what consciousness is or where it resides. The accepted dogma is, matter is life, and anything beyond the physically measurable world is irrelevant to scientific pursuits. Rather than ignoring or condemning that which is unknown by the scientific community or the rational mind, we believe in remaining open to the endless possibilities. The topic of consciousness is a highly contentious field. Beyond just what and where consciousness is, there are also the questions of animal and plant consciousness that we will explore in more detail later. One area where spirit, science, and history align is the topic of quartz crystals. Quartz crystals are often used in, quote, New Age circles for trading, ceremony, and some believe healing. Though a rational man may dismiss these trinkets as fantasy, they have both a scientific and historical relevance. There are several types of quartz crystals. These include amethyst, citrine, rose, smoky, and clear quartz. The crystals are composed of silicon dioxide molecules and other impurities. Crystals containing only silicon dioxide are known as clear quartz. The atoms within crystals vibrate at a stable frequency, making them excellent receptors and emitters of electromagnetic waves. Quartz crystals are also piezoelectric, meaning they can turn energy from one form into another when pressure is applied. When mechanical pressure is applied to a quartz crystal, it vibrates, producing a voltage that can be converted from mechanical forces into electrical signals. Quartz crystals have been used in many common items, including radios, watches, sonar and ultrasonic generators, and hearing aids. They can also be used to make glass, mortar, grindstones, sandpaper, and cleaning compounds. One of the first people to recognize the uses of quartz was Nobel Prize winner Marcel Vogel. Vogel was a research scientist for IBM when he discovered that crystals can be programmed as silicon chips in a computer. He also came to believe that crystals could be programmed through thought. He wrote that thoughts are a form of energy that can be directed through intentions. Specifically, he created devices that he said allowed users to program their intentions onto a crystal and then transfer them to water. He likened the process to the way an inductor in electronics creates an energy field in components in proximity to the field. Despite, or perhaps because of, his prolific work and extreme foresight, his work was denounced as pseudoscience. We now know that quartz has a place in both the modern scientific and mechanical worlds, but scientists and mechanics were not the first to acknowledge the power of crystals. Quartz crystals have been popular for centuries and possibly millennia with indigenous peoples around the world. Amazonian shamans and healers communicate with spirits they believe live within the crystals. In the book The Cosmic Serpent, anthropologist Jeremy Narby writes about the use of crystals by indigenous people and a possible relation to DNA. Narby discusses how Australian Aborigines believe life was created by the rainbow snake, symbolized by quartz crystals. He also mentions the Dasana of the Amazon who believed an anaconda created life. They symbolize the creator with a quartz crystal. Narby goes on to inquire how these varied cultures, separated by time and space, could have possibly come to such similar conclusions. He suggests these cultures may have been aware, from their perspective and understanding, what modern science and its tools of measurement have yet to discover. Perhaps the spirits communicating with these cultures through the use of hallucinogenic plants and altered states of mind was a form of direct communication with DNA, what Narby calls the cosmic serpent. DNA itself has a historical connection to crystals. Erwin Schrödinger was the first physicist to propose the idea that an aperiodic crystal contains genetic information. DNA had already been discovered, but its helical structure and role in reproduction had not. Schrödinger proposed the existence of a hereditary material substance responsible for all life. He called this an aperiodic crystal, which, unlike a standard crystal, does not repeat itself and can produce an infinite number of possibilities with limited atoms. These examples offer starkly different viewpoints on what crystals and DNA are, and what purpose they serve. Different cultures and researchers from vastly different backgrounds, using tools both modern and archaic, physical and intuitive, arrive at similar conclusions. They are unable to recognize the similarity of their discoveries due to an experiential barrier. The information could be identical, yet the presentation and the reception of the information are dependent on the one receiving said information. As Narby noticed while living among and studying indigenous peoples, the objective mind often cannot rationalize or fathom that which has not yet been uncovered. He spoke of the importance of defocalizing the gaze, and specifically, he learned to take the word of the natives he worked with, regardless of what they said, made objective sense. He spoke of, quote, objectifying one's own objectifying relationship, or, quote, becoming aware of one's own gaze. We should remember this valuable lesson as we consider information that may be beyond our current understanding or comprehension.